Well, it's Thursday, so that means it's time for our weekly tech report. Now, the Pope says that following him on Twitter could illuminate the path to heaven. I'm talking, of course, about indulgences. Pope Francis says that following him on Twitter could curry favor with the big guy. Meanwhile, teachers are saying that smart technology is actually dumbing down future generations. To talk all things tech, Ashton Moore is a digital media and tech specialist, and I first asked him about the Pope's new social media campaign.
In my opinion, the Pope's social media campaign is probably the biggest social media promotion or campaign of all time, in my opinion. A lot of organizations or companies will, like, say, give away free iPads, or they will give away free tickets to their events. But in this case, if you do sort of follow the guidelines to following the Twitter account and actually following through with what's suggested, then you can, according to the Catholic Church, now spend less time in purgatory.
Which is a very big deal for Catholics. It's better than an iPad, right, Ashton?
Far better than an iPad.
Sure. So obviously, now, just to give our viewers some context and not to get into too much of the theology, indulgences are a remission of temporal punishment due to sin, the guilt of which has been forgiven, temporarily anyway.
Yes.
It's not forgiveness, but obviously this is a big thing for Catholics. How many Catholics have started following the Pope on Twitter, and do we have any indication that it was as a result of these indulgences?
Well, if you look at news articles yesterday, this is just a very simple and quick way to check statistics. If you look at news articles yesterday, many of them were saying that we had on the Pope's Twitter account maybe 2.6 million followers. As of a few minutes ago, he now has over 2.7 million followers. So just looking at that, it's could be as many as 100,000 followers overnight.
That's a lot of followers. That's like that many.
It's a lot.
I have a hard time getting to 1,000.
Yes.
So obviously these indulgences are maybe catching on, but talk about the Pope and the Vatican's shifting stance when it comes to social media. I know that they're taking to Twitter, they're taking to Facebook, and they're taking to Pinterest of all things.
Yes.
So talk about this.
Well, it's super fascinating to look at it from the organizational standpoint of the Catholic Church, because it's obviously a very established organization. They've been around for a long time. And essentially their adoption of social media says to the world that if we are doing it, why aren't you? In my opinion, because if they're able to learn how to use it correctly, and in my opinion, this is a wonderful way to bring in followers of the Catholic Church, to engage with them, to talk to them, to get their attention and engage with them on social media. I think it's just really a way that they're saying to the world that, you know, now is the time of all times to start thinking about what your organization, what you as an individual are doing on social media as well.
So you said that you think that this is the biggest social media campaign of all time.
Ever.
Do you think it is the best social media campaign of all time? Have you seen better?
Best is an interesting word. I would say in terms of ROI, from you following a Twitter account, in terms of the knowledge that can be imparted to you, in terms of the articles that can be shared to you, I would say spending less time in purgatory, if that's what you believe in, then it's an amazing thing. I mean, it really is, because the idea is that you are able to follow the Pope's his Twitter account, and if you actually pay attention to what's being tweeted, what's being shared, the news that's being pushed out through the account, you will indeed, it will be counted as an indulgence, which is something that comes naturally after a confession. Then you get to, again, spend less time in purgatory.
Who wouldn't want that? Now, while the Vatican and the Pope might be pushing for people to move onto social media and use their social media in order to talk with the Pope, in order to become more active in the church, teachers are going the other way. A new Pew study, a survey of teachers, found that they think that social media is causing their students to have improper grammar. That includes plagiarizing, that includes informal conversations, and it includes spelling. Your thoughts on this?
Well, the Pew study, to be fair, has some pros as well as some cons in it. So the cons, of course, are the rampant plagiarism from, for example, people copying from Wikipedia. But the pros of it are that the same teachers profess, or the Pew studies show that the same teachers are saying that it's increasing collaboration, it's increasing creativity, and because these individuals, the middle schoolers and the high schoolers, are finding that they have a wider audience if they create original, engaging content, then what they're doing is they're actually sharing more, collaborating more, and thinking more about what they're posting and what they're creating.
Now, another thing that teachers said is 94% of them say that their students should write more by hand, because they say that writing by hand makes them feel more actively engaged in the content that they're writing, in self-editing and things like that. Do you think that there's any truth to that kind of aspect of the research?
Well, I can say that I personally, I've been behind the keyboard since I was about 9. So my handwriting is pretty terrible. It's pretty awful. But I feel like creative-wise, in terms of what you're making, at least again from my experience, I type a lot faster than I can write. And so if I'm trying to create something on paper, it'll take me hours. But if I'm creating something on a keyboard or even a BlackBerry or an iPhone or an iPad, I can just do it a lot faster in general, which gives me more time to do edits. Gives me more time instead of pulling a piece of paper out of the typewriter. It gives me time to just delete and re-add. So I'd say, maybe you're not as involved by sitting there and writing, but at least in my experience, it helps me to create.
Ashton Moore is a digital specialist. Thank you so much for coming in and for weighing in on these topics on this Tech Talk Thursday.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.